of it?
It already has.
I don't know, but you know what? The cops came in without a warrant. The courts should throw it out, but the courts don't always do. You know, they don't always follow the law when it's their side. They expect you to follow the law when it's your side, but they don't always follow the law when it's their side. You know? So,
exactly.
I'm hoping, my lawyer says that everything they did was illegal and it should be thrown out, but even my lawyer says there's no guarantee on that.
Well, that's because they're playing a corrupt game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are all holding the... they seem to all be holding the cards up their sleeves, and they send you in there without any.
Yeah.
Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
You know...
I heard noises sound like it hung up.
No, I was trying to raise the volume.
We raised the volume, yeah.
Oh.
I'm actually recording this because you never know when something happens, and we're also limited on our time. How's your schoolwork going? Maybe you have to go now?
Oh, well, no, I just wrote my midterm today, so I've got a couple of days to cool off.
Oh, that's great.
I got 78%, which is not too bad considering it was an online course, and I hate it.
What's the latest with Rick? I haven't heard anything about Rick or talked to him for a while.
Rick's staying in Sofia, Bulgaria at the moment.
Yeah.
Because he has to take 3 months out of the EU, or the European Union, because it's some kind of immigration, because he's not a resident, he's not a permanent resident there, he has to keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
Just to keep it legal so he doesn't get deported.
Yeah.
And so he's just staying with somebody in Bulgaria now, and waiting for, well, he's getting some work done and getting some communications with some people that need... He sent me a couple of radio interviews that he did recently. One was in New Zealand and another one was somewhere else, and he's telling me that, the hits that we're getting on our YouTube sites for Run from the Cure,
yeah,
it doesn't even scratch the surface as to how it's really going out there, because he's going on radio stations that are like national, and going on radio stations that are all like national New Zealand, national Australia, national this, that, and the other. And
all right.
He's telling the whole thing on the radio station. I don't know why people aren't coming back to watch the movie, but, maybe it just so happens that,
Christian, I think I have an idea of why they're not coming to watch the movie. YouTube has locked up the search engines.
Have they?
I'm certain of it. I was listening. Abigail recently went before 3 judges in the Supreme Court here in New York. It was a federal court. And I was paying attention. A lot of the cannabis people don't know, but what's going on with Google is very interesting, because there's only one court where it can be litigated under one judge back in California, Santa Clara County. And what I was gathering, what was happening here in New York, is they were saying, because I wasn't familiar with the case, and I'd have to ask Carl Pearson, because he's the one that knows more about it. I should definitely do a show with him on this. But they were saying that's like having Microsoft saying you can only litigate in Kingston, for example. And so now people are kind of waking up to what this sort of plotting has been going on for years. When all that WikiLeaks stuff came out, that was exactly when I noticed. I tried to get the Chinatown bus up to Albany, which is pretty cheap, and it was totally locked up. Now, you could go to Wikipedia, you could learn about their lawsuit, you could learn all kinds of things about...
what are you saying? Wiki what?
WikiLeaks. Have you heard of WikiLeaks?
You're cutting out, Paul. I'm not sure why.
WikiLeaks.
Have you heard of WikiLeaks?
No, I thought you said Ricky Lake.
No. Okay, I know you've been a student and you've been studying so hard you haven't known this, but there's a distraction story going on. But the reality is, no matter how much information you give about the Chinatown bus, you can kill their business if you don't allow the public to get the bus schedule. And whatever they've done, you can't get a bus schedule. I spent 20 minutes trying to just find out when I'd go down to Midtown to pick up the bus to go to Albany, and the difference in price was about $30. So
Right.
I was highly motivated. I know how to use the internet. I've done it before. I could not find that information. So that's probably why people are not going over to Run from the Cure, despite the fact that Rick has been going on national TV all over the world. The only way around that is we really need to launch our own website. We need to be our own YouTube.
Well, that's a good idea. We have our own website, and we have the videos all on there, and some of yours are on there.
Well, then
if they're not going. If they're going up, if they're not there, but people should be able to access it through Phoenix Tears, and you would think that more than 2 million people have seen it by now.
Well, when Rick is going on these national shows, what is he telling them to look for in the search engines?
Tell them to go to phoenixtears.ca and look for it.
That's what he's telling them?
Because it links right off the Phoenix Tears. There's no point going into YouTube. We have it right there.
Absolutely. Okay, then what we need to find out is when Phoenix Tears picks it up from YouTube, is there something that's cutting it out from there?
Because I can find out from the webmaster. We just got a new one.
Yeah, try to find that out.
Yeah, I'll try to find out if you can pinpoint anything that's happening. Maybe you can set up some site stats or something and have them hidden from the page so we can look at them later.
The other thing is, Christian, there's a point in advertising 5 to 7 that people need to hear something 5 to 7 times before they actually act on it. So just even though he's going out to a lot of people on national TV in New Zealand and all that, they still need to hear it 5 to 7 times.
It's been on TV as well. Have you heard that?
No.
Run from the Cure has been playing on TV all over the place. It's been playing in Europe. It's been playing in
That's
America.
great.
It's on Showcase TV in America last week of January, first week of February. It played like 6 or 7 times that week. Somebody sent me the schedule, and then somebody else sent me the schedule, and I was like, what the crap? Nobody even asked me. I don't care. Play it, but I thought it was strange that these things are popping up, but nobody's, saying, like, who are these people? Let's ask them if we can play it. Well, I'm glad they've taken the reins and started to do it themselves.
Yeah. Christian, did Rick find out about what happened to me and Jay?
Yeah, he listened to the thing.
From Michelle?
Yeah. Yeah, he's totally disgusted. He said, I hope you nailed him to the wall.
Yeah. Well, we're dealing against such corruption. I mean, the police act illegal. The courts protect them. We have no justice in America anymore when the police and the courts act illegally. People like me and Jay and other people who are getting busted really don't stand a chance because there is no real honest legal authority anymore. They do what they want.
There's nowhere. I mean, sometimes when this kind of thing happens, you think, well, gee, the local people are idiots, but it's not just local. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't find out until something like this happens.
Yeah.
That's the sucky part. I probably grew up thinking that, Sesame Street taught me that I should trust police. It also told me to trust doctors.
Yeah.
I did blindly up until they started doing shit to me. That's the problem. Sesame Street and all these other shows are telling kids in the school system, they teach you nothing. Absolutely nothing. But you better respect the people that have guns and stethoscopes.
Christian, could you tell us what the doctors did to you? Because I know that you had scoliosis, but I don't know what can a doctor do for that.
They can't do anything for it. If you have a bad scoliosis, they can put rods in your back. You had that done, right?
Yes, and I had them taken out because when I learned how to meditate and I got so relaxed, they were put in at 14 years old, which usually happens to girls during puberty. And then at 21, I was on a long meditation course and my spine relaxed. I went back to my doctor. He couldn't believe it. He said, it can't be that at 21 years old your spine can change like it did when you were 14. And I said, it is because I'm meditating. And he said, stop meditating. And I said, take the rods out. My insurance expires at 22. But Rick Simpson helped yours with oil.
Well, what happened with me is I had an injury. Well, I had scoliosis to start with. I never knew what it was. Just pain all the time, and it wasn't caused from anything because I hadn't done anything. Finally, I told my doctor, me and my previous doctor had a fight one day over my back pain. He told me I was full of shit. I said, well, I guess I'll take my file and I'll get out of your fucking office then. I'm tired of you, telling me that I'm not in pain. Obviously I am, and I keep coming back here. I don't know why, though, for all you're doing for me. So I find this new doctor, the one I currently have, I haven't seen since summer. He found scoliosis in an x-ray. He wanted an x-ray. So he did an x-ray on me and found the scoliosis, which was very mild. But he said, this is probably what's causing that pain. And, when I was 16, I fell on some ice that had some fresh fallen snow on it, and I landed right on my tailbone, or somewhere around there, which injured the muscles in my back. And basically, after I fell, probably over the next 12 to 24 hours, my whole body stiffened up. I couldn't bend even to tie my shoes. The pain was just agonizing. I was almost collapsed to the point where I could not get up or sit up without assistance. So that went on for years and years. I tried, I went to the doctor about pills. I went to the doctor about getting me a surgery. I was hoping for that. I'm glad I didn't do anything like that, though. In fact, the doctor said, don't push too hard for a surgery, he said, because there's nobody around here who's competent enough to do it. He won't say that now, but at the time he told me there's nobody competent enough. We don't know enough about the back to do something like that. Okay, so the next thing that happened is I gave up on that. I thought, well, I'm not going to take poison pills. I'm certainly not going to take something like Celebrex that's going to make me, my stomach bleed till I die, because that was one of the side effects in it. And I started feeling a little bit of stomach pain when I took it. So I looked up the side effects on that, drug information sheet that you get from the pharmacy, and I wasn't really keen on dying to help my back. And considering that the pill wasn't helping my pain at all anyway, I just discontinued it, as I did with anything else they tried to give me. So I met Rick that one day, thinking, you got a cure for cancer. Well, tell me about it, because I'm not necessarily buying it, but I like to keep an open mind. He passed it to me, and I said, keep it for your cancer patients. Like, I wasn't even thinking it was that real at this point. So he gives me the, I don't know, about 5 or 6 grams of oil in a full tube that we showed on the movie. I think there were probably 2 grams in the tube that he gave me. I took a speck of it, no more than, I would say, no more than what would come out of a permanent marker if you dabbed it on paper, and just like a dot. And 5 hours later, pain-free. And the next time that happened, I was in school last year. I guess it was November. I had come down the water slide at a hotel we have around here, and I bruised my tailbone quite badly on the pool floor. I injured my back in a way that I hadn't actually felt before. It was pain, but it was a new kind of pain. It wasn't the old pain coming back. It was a brand new spot. It got to the point where I got collapsed on the floor again, like screaming out in agony. My family was here looking at me going, what, obviously we know what can help you, so why are you sitting here in agony? And it's always a money issue, as you guys know, so scraped up what I could. I figured if I'm going to be kicked out of school, this is going to ruin all the time I put into it. I'm not going to jeopardize this, not for the doctor, not for the law. I'm not going to jeopardize my schooling for these bozos. So I got up and I made some hemp oil, took it. The next day I was walking around just like nothing happened, and I still am. It's just that simple. And without it, I can't walk. And I'm fed up. I can't imagine what would happen to me, Joe, if the doctors came in, or not doctors, but the police came in here and tried to tell me that, I'm not allowed to heal myself. It'd be a cold day in hell before they walk out of here with me in cuffs.
Yeah, that's what they did with me. I had oil. They took the oil, and supposedly they got 2 pounds of weed, and I think they got about 8 ounces of oil, which I was going to, I've been taking it for my pain and for my post-traumatic stress, and I was going to give a bunch to some other people that needed it, medical people.
Yeah.
But they took it again.
Say, Christian, I've got a friend of mine who, you know, Molly Cheshire. Her friend is going before Congress, and he has a position with the VA.
Your phone's really cutting out bad, Paul. I can only hear every couple words you're saying.
Get closer.
Okay, I'll pick this up, but I'm recording it. My friend is going. Her friend is going before Congress, and he's with the VA. And the VA wants to say for veterans who have post-traumatic stress, they should be able to get medical marijuana. It's not the oil, it's not the amounts for super cure, but at least they would be out of pain in states where it's not legal. You know.
That sounds like a good idea. That sounds like people are trying to give the veterans a break.
Yeah, I mean, they fought and they died for us, and they come back with limbs missing, and, you know, the least you can do is help them get out of pain, if not heal them. I mean, remember that one man in the wheelchair that came back from Afghanistan with no legs? He, just by smoking, no, by taking the oil, he's starting to get sensation, and people thought that wasn't possible.
Well, let's consider that these veterans fought not just for themselves, they fought for this whole country. So why aren't we just letting everybody, you know, be free?
Right.
That was the whole point of the war, I thought.
Of course.
I guess not.
Of course. But it's so dramatic with them, and they, you know, I think people are seeing the inhumanity of it. It's so cruel just for pharmaceutical profits to allow such suffering. It's just unconscionable.
Well, you know, and to take the blinders off of people, you know, it's pretty much what we're all doing is removing blinders, and we're doing it at an exponential rate. I'm just wondering when the riots are going to start. I mean, look what's happening in Egypt right now. Those people aren't very happy with the leaders they have. I'm not sure what sparked them to get up off their butts and start, you know, charging. I don't, because I'm busy, like you said, I'm busy in school. I don't follow all that stuff. But something bad's going on over there. They got some political upheaval. But, you know, you bring out the cure for cancer here, and you tell people that, you know, your leaders and your people that should be, people that are going to your door asking for money for cancer, they don't even want the cure. But
right.
Nobody's getting up, you know, nobody's getting up and doing anything about it. I mean, you and I are. Joe's doing something about it. Some other people are here and there, and we're all very scattered. It would be nice if the population would just stand up and say, you know what, we're sick of this. You know, I told you before, Paula, like, voting on leaders is one thing, but voting on, you know, every law that gets passed and bringing up old laws and having them, I think, you know, as far as a democracy goes and people trying to have a free society, how are you going to have a free society when we're electing people who are preventing it?
Right. And you know what? People like us have just become targets. Unless more people start standing up, all that's going to happen is eventually they're going to put the people like us in jail that are talking, and there's going to be nobody doing anything. You know, we really need the people to come out. You know, there's more people that smoke marijuana than there are Democrats. There's more people that smoke marijuana than there are Republicans. But none of those people, well, I won't say none of them, but very few of those people are making their voices heard. And that's the problem.
You need 1 million man march.
Yeah, we definitely need more people to...
That's what you need.
Stand up for what they believe in. I'm not asking anybody to... I would never ask somebody to stand up and shout for something they don't believe in. I mean, I'm telling people it cures cancer, it cures Crohn's, it cures pain, it cures glaucoma. I mean...
MS?
It does a number of things for MS, too, and I can say it until I'm blue in the face, and there's a whole kinds of people out there that don't want to hear that from me. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree in cannabinoid medicine. The only person I even know that does is Dr. Bob Malamud. But I mean, that's the kind of person who gets he's got a PhD. He stands up in front of groups of people. He goes on the internet. He gives lectures, and he tells people the truth about this medicine. And those people do listen. But I don't know. If people would just stand up for what they believe in and stop putting, look the other way, okay, well, I'll just do it quietly, which was a good idea for a while. Have your pot in the back room and spray some air freshener when you hear the doorbell. Or maybe it's time to stop that. Maybe it's time to just say, you know what? If we all have a joint in our hand and we're all walking around, with oil in our pocket, how are they going to arrest us all?
Exactly.
How are people going to? I mean, there's more of us than there are of police. There are more of us than there are of leaders. They're all doing this for money reasons. I mean, we're doing it anyway. They're not losing any money off of us. What money are they losing off of me? I'm not buying pharmaceutical drugs, and I'm not going to, whether they arrest me or not. I don't see what. Yeah, but I don't see what they're protecting at this point.
But you don't think they're protecting very expensive therapies? Once people find out that this works and it's not painful, it's actually pleasant. The
I
worst
was never going to use it anyway, so arresting me is not going to improve the sale of chemo.
No, but what she's saying is she's afraid that if the word gets out, the medical profession is going to start losing. If everybody knew what we knew and started using oil, the medical profession, the chemotherapy people, the drug companies are going to lose millions of dollars. That's why all the politicians are in their pockets. They're paying them to keep us from being effective.
That's why we need to abolish this whole stupid system and start from scratch. It's all wrong. Everything that we're doing currently as a society is all wrong. And we need to reevaluate it. And one thing that Dr. Melamy talks about when he speaks about people, and I think he's a really good speaker because he, as a PhD, he doesn't overtalk people, and he's not up above their heads. He's down here with us. And he says there are blips and there are flips. The blips are the backward-looking people. They don't want change. They want things to stay exactly the same way they are. They're filling their pockets with money. They're doing everything, that was set up right from the 30s on, and they're looking back. And we need the forward-looking people, the flips, to come along who are not cannabinoid deficient, which he says the people who are backward-looking are. And I think people that take cannabinoids as a supplement, like hemp oil is, I think people find out from themselves that they may have expected a high. It might not have happened the same way as it did when they smoked a joint. I think I've explained that on a couple of shows of Paula's, that it's not the same kind of feeling. There's similarities, but oil isn't something you'd go do to have a laugh. It's totally different. Oil is medicinal, where smoking is recreational. But these people that are cannabinoid deficient, as soon as they take cannabinoids, even Rick said it on Run from the Cure, your thinking processes start to clear, and you start to really take a look at what's going on. Your eyes start to open up to what's really happening. So many people have called marijuana a gateway drug, and the propaganda says it's a gateway to using harder drugs. I mean, I know tons of people who do marijuana, and they're not doing anything else on the side. I think marijuana is the gateway back to reality.
I agree on that.
I mean, even if you don't take any prescriptions, you're walking around smelling the fumes. There's something coming out of everybody's vehicle. There's something coming out of the planes. There's something coming out of the whatever they're spraying the flowers with. I mean, I just looked the other day at my cupboard, and I looked at all the chemicals I have in here, and I'm just disgusted. I can smell some of them, and I didn't know what they were. They're probably causing people to. I'd say all the chemicals. I mean, a lot of the studies that we're coming up with now are showing that the chemicals from the chemical age are causing a lot of these diseases that we have.
So, it's Christian, do you think that's probable cause to shut down the pharmaceuticals?
Say what?
Do you think it's probable cause when you smell those smells in your kitchen to shut down the pharmaceuticals, so to speak? I'm making a joke.
Well, I think the pharmaceutical companies, if they're not willing to take the money that they have, which is more than enough, and change that operation so they can actually start helping people. I mean, there's still time to turn this around. I don't know who's going to trust them after they, admit that they've done this to us, and it's a horrible travesty to humanity to take away the medicine that heals and give us crap that doesn't, and charge the big bucks for it. But, in the sense that, I don't know, I think about this sometimes, and it's such a large issue that it's hard to put one heavy point on any particular part of it. But I think that if we concentrated, can you hold on just 1 second? a little bit more on trying to change something, like you had said, Paula, about cops. Don't hate the police, because the police are hating what they're doing too.
Right.
You know, some of them are. I'm sure some of them have an ego with it, and it's a big trip for them to go out and arrest somebody. But I mean, I just talked to Rick the other day, and he said he's treated cops. They came to his house. They got oil for their parents or for themselves. But next thing you know, they're in his house raiding them with the.
What happened there?
Oh, just ignore that. I'm going to let that call go to voicemail. Keep going, Christian.
Oh, I didn't even hear one. I think we can stand up on a soapbox with our fists shaking, and I think people have been doing that for a number of years, at least since the 60s. It's not working. But if we do what you said, Paula, and start, hammering away at some of these organizations that could make a difference, that could do something, if we could find the loophole that just makes that change happen.
Well, I think it's a matter of can you hear me? Am I cutting out or not? Christian?
Hold on one moment. Go ahead, Paula.
Can you hear me okay? Christian?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me, or should I pick up? Christian? Hello? Christian?
I think he said hold on.
I was saying goodbye to my son.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can, without the cut. Bye, Jordan.
I want to make sure you hear me, and the audience does too. Okay, it's just that I can't get your response when I pick up, and I don't want to miss your response, so I'll just say this quick.
Hello?
The police, the idea of being friends with the police or keeping open and having nonviolent communication and things like that is to keep the dialogue open. But what about groups like LEAP and Normal and MMP, where people think things are happening, but they're not?
Yeah.
I don't know anything personally about those groups. I've heard an awful lot of. I've heard of some stories about them. I don't think we should be going after
Christian Laurette.
Necessarily. I don't think we should be going after groups that are saying they advocate for marijuana, legalization, because what I find is the people that have advocated for marijuana legalization, I'm not going to name any group in particular, I will say Normal though, and I won't say every group of Normal. I think some of the people that work for Normal are very much interested in getting it legalized, but I tend to believe that a lot of the people that are running it, it's the exact opposite. And I think they've got a vested interest in keeping it illegal, to tell you the truth.
That's my point, Christian. I'm actually feeling more warmly towards most of the police officers than I am towards the groups that purport to be doing the work, that those who are donating money, like you're saying, nobody wants to be smoking marijuana in the back room or, in the privacy of their own apartment, riddled with guilt at these draconian sentences that are being given to the dealers that have to get these sentences. How do you get your legal limit of marijuana unless you go to a dealer? And so they give money to these groups, Normal and MMP and LEAP, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the police, because at least these are guys trying to get a job, although, like you pointed out to Michelle, at a certain point, I think even a police officer becomes culpable if he's doing something illegal. And that's why your show with her was so good, because here's a person who is not a pot smoker. She just came down to buy Joe and Jay's while I was in California to use the computer, and now she is becoming avid about researching not only pot, but her rights. It's about rights.
Yeah, and it's about having somebody come in and taking them over nothing. But she didn't have any idea what was going on anyway. The fact, when I talked to Michelle, I got the impression from her that she felt like there was that worry in her head. Are they allowed to do this to me? Well, I don't know. I don't know if they can grab me or shove me or push me or strip me, and if I fight back, what are they going to do next? I think that's scary. That scares me more than anything. I'm surprised nobody threw a punch, with what was going on.
Because all of these people have had to learn how to be so ultra cool, otherwise that would be put against them, that pot smokers are violent or whatever. Although I think people generally know that that couldn't be true. Can you repeat, for the sake of this show, the example you gave her about a donut shop versus the police station?
Oh, yeah, well, what I said to her, because what I was trying to do when I was speaking to Michelle was just trying to get her to relate the feelings of what had taken place to her. I said, how does it make you feel that they took you and did that strip search and you hadn't done anything wrong whatsoever? But here you are in this situation and this is happening to you. I said, I would be terrified. And she said, well, I didn't know if they could do it, and I was nervous, and I was kind of wondering what was going to happen next. And
in other words, she knew she was in a house where people smoked pot, and so she felt that was her bad luck that she happened to be there when this search came along. Had the search been legal, with a warrant, then I believe she would have been in trouble. Is that true?
Well, that's not even what I mean.
I know it's not what you meant.
The police have this presence, like they're going to do the right thing. And I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about, TV shows for children telling you to trust the police. And that's the way that you're normally raised, unless maybe, you've got Joe for a father and he tells you the truth, about what's really going on out there. My father didn't tell me that the police were corrupt, but maybe he didn't have that kind of experience.
Right.
But for Michelle, I think that what she was going through was just more confusion than anything. But then I made the point, I said, well, what if the manager of a donut shop down the street grabbed you out of your seat and did the same thing out back? She said, well, I'd be absolutely mortified. I'd be terrified. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's more like how you should feel when the cops are doing it to you, because they're not allowed to do it either.
The problem is, in this country, most people believe that the police, because they're the police, are going by the law, and that they have authority to do the things they do. Like with her, I talked to her a bunch, and she believed at first that if the police smelt marijuana outside our door, that gave them the authority to walk in our house and put us under arrest. And even though we were saying that they didn't have a warrant, she was believing because they smelt marijuana outside the door that they were within their legal authority. And that's one of the problems with this country. Most people in this country believe that the police have the authority to do anything they want. Like if they walk up to you and say, "What's in your pocket?" People believe that the police have a right to make you empty your pockets. Very few people understand that their rights override what the police tell them to do, unless they're actually breaking the law and are arrested.
You know what I thought about, Joe? I wanted to tell you something and I agree with you. I think people are
conditioned.
Well, they are, and that's that fear. But tell me, if you had something, maybe not you, I believe that you know your rights more than the average person, or more than the average Joe, pardon the pun. But I think that when somebody says empty your pockets to a police officer, and your local politician's not standing there watching the whole thing go down, what leg do you have to stand on? You could say no, but then you could have your arm put behind your back in 2 seconds, and then the whole thing could be denied. They could say you did something else. Are police allowed to lie to you, Joe?
Well, they're not supposed to, but they do all the time, and the courts allow them to do it.
Yeah, they allow it because it's part of their mission for justice or something, that they can lie to you to get the truth out of you. I don't see how there is any logic to that.
Well, they feel like anything that they do is okay as long as they're getting the bad guys. But once they step over the line and break the law themselves, they are the bad guys.
Yeah, but they still have the gun, and they still have the badge, and they still have the respect of every peer that they have, the judges, the prosecutors, all that. I don't know how to circumvent all that. But one thing I wanted to mention to you, and believe me, I mean, we're all thinking about it all day, every day. I'm always trying to come up with something that we can do to fix some of this, or even just a piece of the puzzle. I wonder if you'd be able to become a peace officer. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know. I'm under the impression that if you're a peace officer, even if you just take the oath, if you can find a judge to swear you in and become a peace officer under oath, is an officer of the law allowed to treat you the same way as they're allowed to treat a regular citizen? Are they allowed to walk, as a police officer, allowed to walk up to another police officer and arrest them?
Oh, you mean if we became peace officers, we would have the legal authority to arrest a policeman who's not constitutional?
If you were doing your job properly, I imagine you would.
Well, that's interesting, because when Michelle was talking about some of the police that were nice to her, you said, after all, even if they're nice, it's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, you can say to somebody you're under arrest, and you can put flowers in their hair while you're doing it. It doesn't make it any funner.
Right.
But what I'm saying is...
Or more legal.
If it's possible to get... And I'm not saying this is obviously not for everybody, but maybe it is. Maybe if this is the way to circumvent it, let's all become peace officers. I'm under the impression, at least here in Canada, that one peace officer, and I'm saying peace, not police, somebody who agrees to keep the peace, if you can get sworn in to, take your oath that you're going to keep the peace, you don't have to carry a weapon, that if you carry the documentation with that judge's signature on it that you are a peace officer, I do not believe the police have the right to arrest peace officers in the same way they arrest everybody else. I believe they have different rules they go by, and that really makes them step back and go, whoa, we can't do that.
What are the different rules,
I'll give you an example of where I cut this from. I know somebody who did this. I know somebody who went and took the oath to become a peace officer. And I know in the court, in one of the same courtrooms that Rick Simpson had to answer, for curing cancer in, it sounds so weird to say that, but the person who had applied for the peace officer, I don't know what you call it, just the status of it, legal status of it, pulled the papers out of his coat pocket when the cops came toward him in the court. They were going to arrest him. They wanted to at least, cuff him or something, because he had said something out loud in the court, and the judge said stop. And he didn't stop, so the officers were coming over to him. He pulled that peace officer paper out of his hand. He said, don't touch me, I'm a peace officer. And the two of them just backed right off, like, I'm not doing this.
Why?
I've never seen that happen with an ordinary citizen before. Cops aren't afraid to touch you if you got nothing. But, I mean, maybe it's something to look into anyway. It's something I want to do. I'd love to be able to pull a piece of paper out of my pocket and say, you better step back, Flatfoot, because this isn't for you today.
Yeah, we don't have that down here where just any citizen can go and become a peace officer. That may happen in Canada, but I'm pretty sure it don't happen down here.
Why can't you be a peace officer?
I've never heard of it before, and believe me,
He's peaceful.
I would have probably heard of somebody doing it.
I mean, do you ever hear in the news one police officer arrested another?
No.
I've never heard of it.
Let me tell you.
I don't think they can do it.
One of the cops from the SWAT team that originally busted us, from the Urgent Task Force that originally busted us, he got caught stealing money, and he got caught, putting in vouchers for working as a police officer and also working as a school guard at the same time, right? And when they found out that he was doing that illegal stuff, they suspended him with pay.
Oh, they always do that, don't they, Joe?
Yeah.
Go have a vacation, and we'll take care of it.
Right. And he was definitely doing criminal stuff. He stole money from the locker. When they bust people and they put the money in the locker or the drugs in the locker, he was caught stealing money from the locker. He was also caught double dipping by saying he's working for the police. At the same time, he was saying he was working for the school and collecting two checks for doing the same time. And all they did to him as a police officer was suspend him with pay. If that was you or I doing that, we would have went to jail, and they would have took everything we own.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. There seems to be some protection in being a part of their little menagerie, I guess. It's something I'd like to look into, at least for myself. I want to be able to, because I do keep the peace. I'm not going out looking for trouble.
Yeah, me too.
People.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've never, other than the police coming and bothering me for marijuana, I would have never been arrested. I would have never been in trouble. I've never did violence. Other than marijuana, I've never been in trouble.
Yeah, and the only reason you're in trouble is because somebody made a foolish law that people are blindly following. I watched a video last night. I'm going to send it to you guys. It's about, I forget the guy's name, somebody who wrote a lot of the U.S. drug policy years ago. And the guy is he just seems to be kicking himself, saying this was the worst thing I've ever done. I wrote all these drug laws. There's so many people in jail. This is something you guys got to see.
We definitely want to see it. If you could, can you put it on a DVD and mail it to me? Because I will put it in as evidence in my trial.
So if I can get it on a DVD, absolutely, yeah. Paula can email me your address after, and we'll get that done.
Or you can mail it to Paula if you've got her address. It'll be the same thing.
Yeah, we're married now. I mean, I hope we're married, even though we're not getting a marriage certificate from St. Mark's Church.
Even the church. We got married legally in the church. We got married in the church, and then when we wanted her to file the legal documents to say we were married, the woman who married us, she wouldn't do that. And then we said to her, would you at least give us a marriage certificate from the church? And she won't do that. So isn't it crazy? There was like 150 people witnessed our marriage.
We fed them.
And nobody, neither the state nor the church, will recognize that we're married.
That's ridiculous. I don't even understand where that's coming from.
We don't either.
We don't either.
I've never heard anybody coming back from a wedding and saying nobody recognizes their wedding unless maybe they had it in Vegas. But no, I don't understand that. It sounds like maybe you guys are too public a figure, and maybe more people know you than you know. I don't know. I know, Paula, you've been beating the street with a lot of different issues.
Well,
I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been a marijuana activist for 40 years. So I know they don't like me.
But I think that
the church doesn't like you?
Well, I don't know about the church. But yeah, the woman at the church who married us actually knew that I was fighting a case on marijuana, and she wasn't thrilled with it. And I think after she married us, she changed her whole mind about I should not have done that, and I wish I could undo it.
And you know what's wonderful is Joe sticking up for me, because, actually you said you would have taken it, but it was for me you wanted to.
Right.
There's a lot of, I think we're talking about prejudice of the human mind. I think that's the basis. And I know you and I have had deep discussions about psychology and even addiction. Can you talk about addiction or whatever you want to talk, but prejudice, how do you get to prejudice? How do you address that?
How do you address the prejudice of people who have a mindset against people who do other things?
Yeah.
Don't maybe approve of?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that giving people the cure for cancer would erase the prejudice.
Right.
I mean, you would think. I mean, that's something that most of us are going to need. If we don't need it now, we're going to need it later. We're going to need it into old age, because these diseases that these chemicals and these other things that we're eating and the crap that we're putting in our bodies every day are going to catch up to us someday. And run from the cure might not mean squat to you today, but it might mean everything to you in 10 years. It might mean everything to you in 20 years.
Well, that's why we always said there's a direct relationship between freeing the prisoners and the cancer cure, because if you don't free the prisoners, you guys, you got to keep it down. I'm picking you up. They're in the next room. It's been a lot of information here. If you don't free the prisoners, then dealers who have the inclination to develop good oil, they're going to put all the good people into prison. Then when you need it, you're not going to have it.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said before, the best right now, the best avenue to get good cancer medicine is from a marijuana dealer.
Yeah.
They don't all have the good stuff, but You want the good stuff, you have to go there. You're not going to get it from a drugstore. You're not going to get it from a hospital.
You guys,
and if you
can you go
trust
out?
that you're going to get it from a marijuana dealer, you're putting yourself at risk to have the same thing happen that Joe had happen, or that Rick had happen, or, I mean, you name it. Just about anybody that's ever been public about marijuana has been arrested. Knock wood, I haven't been yet.
No. Can you explain exactly what regulation does in Canada? Because oftentimes people look to Canada. Michelle was talking too that at least in Canada you have paid for health care. It's always the grass is greener on the other side. What is your experience of what regulation actually means when it comes to delivering a product, a medicine that you urgently need?
Well, talking about regulation on marijuana specifically in Canada, in the early 2000s, it was decided that that the medical marijuana program would branch out and they would allow more people to have it. There would be a certain criteria that you would have to meet as a medical patient in order to get marijuana and not have your door kicked in to be arrested. The regulation currently stands that you have to have a terminal illness, you have to have a disease that's not going to get better, which is kind of a weird stipulation because the very thing that they're giving you to help with, if you processed it right, probably could cure you of that. And now that they're finding that out, I don't know, it just seems like they're pulling back the reins. When we made Run from the Cure, there were 2,000 people out of a country, Canada, of 30 million people. Now, out of 30 million people, I mean, what Joe said, I mean, what's the percentage of people that use marijuana? It might not be 50%, but even if it was, how come only 2,000 people have it? You know, there's a hell of a lot more than 2,000 people that are sick in this country. But here's the regulation part. Because I don't have a cancer or something that they can pinpoint and say, yes, you've got something that I can see, you've got something that this x-ray shows, and I can give you the marijuana because my pain doesn't show up on an x-ray. It just shows up in my face and the way I, carry myself when it's happening. That's not good enough because that's the kind of person that you can milk all the way to the bank with pills and
right.
and remember all this nonsense. You say free health care. It's free to me, but somebody's filling their pockets on me going. I mean, you guys have, say, you got to go to the hospital for a broken leg. Well, fine. They might fix you up and you have to pay a bill. Well, we go to the hospital with a broken leg. We never see that bill. If somebody sees it, and somebody's getting paid big bucks to do it, oh, make me 10 appointments. Make me 10 appointments to find out what's wrong with my back, so you can just fill your pockets those 10 times and then tell me, wait a minute, let's get you a referral. Wait a minute, let's get you to see a specialist. It's being abused. It's being abused big time. More so here than it is in the United States because anybody can go to the hospital. I can go to the hospital right now and tell them my butt's itchy. They'll do something to me. They'll look. They'll spend the time. They might make me wait a long time because it's a silly thing to say. But they'll actually spend money to find out what's wrong with my butt. They'll probably give me cream, probably give me a whole bunch of crap. The doctor will spend time with me. That'll all be written up as a bill and sent off to our health care insurance places because just because it's not coming out of my pocket doesn't mean that they're not manipulating it just the same. And they are. They are more so because we don't ever see the amount. So I don't know how much it costs to have a baby. I hear people talking in the United States about, somebody got pregnant and we planned a nice, a baby, and then we got a bill for $12,000 for the delivery.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, wow, I've never heard of anything so ridiculous because you want a baby here, you have one.
Right.
You never get the bill. You never find out who got paid what for it.
Well, Marcel Ginak, who you set me up with, an MS patient, he said, and we couldn't even do the math, it was so mind-boggling, out of 3,000 patients, they're getting prescriptions. Some MS patients are throwing the prescriptions away, but it's costing the taxpayers $120 million a year just in the province of Nova Scotia. So the health, minister wouldn't allow him to have a simple procedure done, and he had to come to Albany. Since he's a heavy cannabis user, he's doing quite well, and he's hoping that it was the angioplasty procedure that he did. And he said that that works for the big veins because, can you briefly describe that procedure?
Can I describe the CCSVI procedure?
Yes, you're so articulate.
Well, I'll try. I'll do my best. I've seen the news clips and I've heard Marcel talk about it. What it is there is a blockage of blood in the brain area that is not allowing a proper flow. Usually it is to do with a restriction of a couple of major
veins.
I think of the word, the veins that are in your neck, the jugular veins.
Yeah.
There's two major jugular veins that kind of go on either side of your neck in the front. And those tend to restrict with MS patients for some reason. So what they do is they go in through the groin area with I would say it's like a wire of some kind, and they fish it up through your veins, put it up through your heart, where the large arteries are, so they can move it around. And they get that thing, and it's got the potential to be a balloon on the end of it. A very microscopic balloon, so they can fish this thing through and then blow air into it and basically puff those veins back out, allow that blood flow to start going. And it's amazing to see it happen on a live ultrasound because you can actually watch the blockage release and you can see the blood go right through that wasn't moving before. So basically what it is, it's allowing blood to flow where blood had been trapped. And I don't know exactly what the mechanism is that makes it work, but just about everybody that I have seen on YouTube, including Marcel, who I've met in person, and I know the difference between him is night and day, it was really looking like he was dying. He was feeling miserable. He was getting really, really scared of the way he was feeling. He told me that just eating something as small as a bite of an apple caused him to have excruciating pain while his body tried to digest that apple. And that's not happening anymore.
He had a very, very bad form of MS, but he doesn't...
He's got what's called progressive relapsing MS, and he should be dead now. Most people that get progressing relapsing MS don't live as long as he has, and he attributes that to hemp oil. His doctor told him that you should not be alive right now because people don't get better from this. They get worse, and they die. Marcel has beaten the odds using hemp oil, and now by getting the CCSVI treatment.
Now, we only have 5 minutes left. I just wanted to say that he was a little bit worried that cannabis as a vasodilator would make it hard for stents to stay in his vessels, but his vascular surgeon did some research on cannabis. Doctors can do research if they're motivated and get the data. The data's there. And he said the reason that it's a vasodilator is because the muscles around the veins relax, and that's why the blood goes through more. So in the end, he didn't need any stents anyway, but had he done it, they would have lodged, they would have stayed. Now he's concerned about the tiny vessels, the tinier ones that can't be reamed out through the I call it angioplasty.
Well, that's
procedure.
What it is. It's a venous angioplasty.
Right. So he's hoping that the cannabis use will start to flush out the smaller veins and that he's going to be progressively healthier. And he needs about 1 gram a day, by the way.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of work to be done still in all kinds of different areas. Any doctors that, like the one that Marcel had, that has the motivation to research cannabis, I mean, get in it. Get to it. It's all over the place. You can't stick your head in the sand forever. I mean, we all found out about it, and maybe when we first heard about it, it didn't sound like the most logical thing in the world because it was brand new. But
Christian, since we have just a few minutes left, again, I want to thank you for all the support that you've been giving to me and my son, and I really appreciate you. You are a brother.
Well, you're a brother to me as well, Joe. I want you guys to come out on top of this situation, and Michelle too. It's just one of the things that happen. I mean, it's happening probably right now here and in New York. Somebody's probably getting arrested for something very similar.
140 a day.
In New York City alone.
They don't know their rights, and we need to help them. We need to help them to learn.
Well, we've been on television. I've been on television a lot of times, and I've been telling people, I don't know if you've seen all the television shows that Paul has put up, but I'm constantly getting it out there to people about what to assert their rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't, you're going to keep taking them, and you're going to lose another one tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's about much more than pot, because even if you don't smoke pot, once you're aware, like Michelle's eyes were really open. She goes, wow, this is how these people have been treated?
Absolutely, yeah. And you don't, and that's the kind of thing people sit at home and they think, oh, somebody got busted. Ooh, well, maybe they shouldn't have been doing that. But then Michelle got the different perspective. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do.
That was in my own home. You should be allowed to do whatever you want. You know, if I want to smoke marijuana in my own home, why should the police be able to sniff at my door and then push their way in without a warrant, violate my rights, search my home,
to privacy,
take whatever they want, violate my privacy? You know, they call this a free country, but there's nothing free about it.
Yeah, and then the cash that they take, even if you prevail in court, you don't get your cash back. You have to go through a song and dance for that. It's horrifying.
Yeah, I imagine it would be very horrifying. That might not even be, that might be your laundry money, that might be your grocery money, it might be your rent money.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was our rent money. They took our rent money. Jay had $1,100 in his pocket that was supposed to pay the rent and a couple of the bills, and I had $400 in my pocket, and they told us we forfeited. And with no proof that we were selling marijuana or that was proceeds of a drug transaction, they just told us straight up, you forfeited your money.
Wow.
And then Michelle, remember she was saying she wanted to do everything right, and when Joe tried to slip her $20 for the taxi, Joe knew that they were going to take his money anyway, and he would have given her more. She needed $30. Do you know if he didn't do that they would have just left her out in the cold? They wouldn't take her home early in the morning?
Oh, I believe it.
And they wouldn't let us get our coats. They brought us in the shirts that we had on in the house. They would not let us get our coats or get anything warm. They took us out in handcuffs, left us out in the car in the freezing cold for an hour while they went in and out of my house without a warrant. One cop after another went up into my apartment. And then 8 hours later, at the police station, they hand me a warrant. When here, according to the law, they're supposed to have the warrant at the door when they enter.
Yeah, really. So are you going to end up, I'm not asking you to do this now, but are you going to release the names of these people that did this?
Maybe. I don't know their names at this point. Michelle got one of the cops' names, but I'm going to ask when I file my paperwork, I want the names of all the police officers involved. And, yeah, I'm not afraid to let it out. You know, they're out to get me anyway. It ain't going to hurt me anymore by making a stink.
Well, also to create the awareness to somebody who would be unaware and possibly, you know, allow that person into an aspect of their life that could put them in a similar situation.
Yeah.
You never know what they're going to pull. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, if they smelled marijuana in an apartment building, they must have pretty good sensory organs to be able to tell what room, you know, in a hallway. I don't know. I mean, I've smelled marijuana before. I mean, it's not something that is impossible to find. When I smell it randomly, I don't know what direction it's coming from. You know, it is quite a potent smell.
Well, also,
it comes from anywhere. To break somebody, to put somebody's foot, to put your foot in somebody's door and say, "Hey, I didn't come here for this, but now that I'm here, y'all come with me."
Right.
I mean, that's tyranny. That's terrorism, is what it is.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, Joe also had in his papers that it's his religious belief, so they would know, and you know, there's a good argument that he was targeted.
I've been saying for 40 years that it's part of my religious belief, that I use it for meditation and to transcend to a higher spiritual level. I've done 4 court cases now. This is going to be the 5th one that I've said I've been using it for 40 years as my religious belief. My son has been raised all his life as this is part of his religious belief.
So there would be an indication that there was marijuana there. When he comes down to stay with me, he has to embrace a different religion. So we rush up to Woodstock.
Yeah, Paula won't let me smoke at her house.
Well, you could go in the tub with some wheatgrass juice. I won't tell you about that one.
Oh, you mean...
I'd like to try that someday. I don't know how I would administer it, but I'd be interested in
wheatgrass juice?
Giving that a shot, because you said that was pretty good.
Oh, wheatgrass juice up the butt. There's nothing like it.
I'll make that in my next documentary.
Okay, Christian, thank you for the time that you've given us.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Christian. Thank you again.
Are you good to me now?
Well, we're finishing her thing's running out. The film on the camera. We can talk after it runs out.
Oh, where are you guys? Are you both in New York now?
Yeah, we're in Paula's apartment.
Oh, I was under the impression you were still in California.
No, I was in California while all this happened, and now I'm just back here in Manhattan.
Okay, I'll call anytime. It's always a pleasure to hear from you both.
Oh, Christian, I can't thank you enough for this idea of calling up Michelle. And I also want to do a shout out to Michelle, because when I was so stressed out, wondering what the hell is going on, I'm with my family, I'm trying to explain, I'm still a bride. She gave me she took the time to give me such a detailed description of what happened. And I realized, she could be a real asset in helping many other people. And then when you offered from your side to interview her, I thought this would be great. So thank you for that idea.
And it's
Well,
good.
you're welcome.
It's good that you interviewed her, because if Paula had interviewed her, they would say, well, she's Joe's wife. Of course, she's going to slant it. But with you doing it, it's an independent person, and I really do appreciate that you did that.
Absolutely. Anytime I can do anything like that, I'd be more than happy to give it a go.
And the same here. Anytime we can help you or Rick, we're there.
And you guys have done more than your share, believe me, and we appreciate it, definitely.
Well, we just want to cure the cancer patients. We really believe and run from the cure, but there is an art and a skill to the healing, and I think part of it is caring and giving and sharing, and that's what you do, and that's what Rick's done.
And not just that, we want to free all the people that are in jail. As long as there's people in jail and going to jail, none of us are safe. It's time to free all the people. We want no more people going to jail for nonviolent marijuana use.
Absolutely. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to send you that video. I'm going to send it to Paula's email. You guys can watch it for now. Maybe you could find a way to rip it off of that onto some kind of file or something. But
yeah, I'll try.
You'll find it very interesting. The guy that wrote the marijuana laws that are currently in place now in the U.S. is saying, I made a huge mistake.
Wow.
I am making that second movie. If you got any ideas for me, either one of you.
Actually, I put another role on, because every time you speak, Christian, all the things you say I think are so important for people to listen to.
Oh. Well, thank you for saying so. I don't think that I have anything more important to say than you or Joe, or anybody for that matter. I think that...
When three or more are gathered.
I think it's a good thing that we're all collaborating and trying to make this, happen, because what we're trying to do is not just make it happen for ourselves. There's somebody, living right close to us. We might not know them, and they're suffering something horrible.
Right.
And there's a baby somewhere that's being tube-fed chemotherapy, and they have no choice whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, and this is the kind of thing that's absolutely acceptable. I'm getting people writing to me every day, and literally it's starting to become an everyday thing now, where I'm getting the same kind of communication that Rick Simpson started getting. And I feel like I can't leave the computer, because somebody's going to need me. Someone's going to, I don't know why they need me. The information's all free on the internet. But they crave that human contact, somebody who knows what they're talking about, that can guide them. It's one thing to read it off a web page. It's another to have that human touch and to have somebody say, I care about you enough to spend my free time. I don't know you from a hole in the ground, but I don't want you to suffer and die when there's something you can do about it. This is the kind of thing I've been doing. I've been finding myself doing every day. I've been buying phone cards to talk to people in the U.S., try to get them some help. I don't want that to become my life, but You know, it's one of those things where you look at what's going on, and you have to make a decision, like, should I eat? Should I go and clean my house? Or should I help two people, you know, help their mom out of a terminal cancer situation?
Wow.
It's just like, holy crap.
Right.
If more people could get the same message out that we're trying to get out, then it would put a lot less pressure on us, and it would put more pressure on the people who are trying to make these, you know, make our lives impossible. And I think what Joe's doing, I think the things that you say, Joe, and the things that you put out there are so important, because it's a perspective on, I mean, I think people who deal with pot, you know, who aren't necessarily familiar with it, but who hear about it, who see it in the news, people with that negative attitude, or maybe they're just on the fence, like, I don't know if it's good or if it's bad, but it's illegal, so I'm staying away from it. And then somebody would hear somebody like you talk, and or Rick, or Paula, or myself, perhaps, and say, they're not talking about it the way that I've heard it before. That, you know, there's something good here. You know, I want to know more. And I'm reading Shauna Banda's book right now, the lady who cured her Crohn's disease, that she had for 8 or 9 years, with hemp oil. And, you know, in the first couple pages, I wish I had the book right here in front of me, because it says something like, you might hear information like 5 different times. And until there's some interest in what you're hearing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't click in. It's not something that you are going to take. Like, so, I mean, how many times do we have to repeat ourselves before that one person says, okay, I'm listening now? Yeah. And what do we have to, what barrier do you have to tear down first for them to even say, okay, I'm ready to look? I don't know what those barriers are, but I'm disillusioned that I put out a movie that has a cure for disease in it, and I get the impression from some of the things that I hear that probably about half the people will look at it. Half the people will say, no, that's not possible. If the cure for cancer is real, and I've said this thing myself, and most of the people I've met in this area in Cumberland County where Rick found this out, they say if cannabis did cure cancer and diabetes and Crohn's and these other, you know, pain, why didn't anybody do anything about it? Like, why, when you contact people, just contact the people that can make this happen. They'll use it. And you tell them, well, we already contacted these people. They don't respond, for one, and if they do, they respond with, well, thanks for the information, or no response whatsoever. I find it difficult to believe that, I guess I'm finding it more easy to believe now, but I'm finding it hard to accept that you give somebody something that can potentially change their whole life, and they're just so, they got the wall up so far that it just goes right past them, and they don't even see it go by.
Maybe they don't want to change. Maybe that's what the healer really struggles with.
Why wouldn't somebody, and that's another thing to analyze, why wouldn't somebody want to stop their father or their mother from dying from cancer? You know, why would you not want that change and have that kind of expense to go along with it?
Well,
I don't know.
Jane Goldberg told me in Modern Psychoanalysis, why do we hate the people we love? Sometimes we're in ruts.
And you know, Rick, Christian, one of my things is, it's not just the people with diseases that are suffering. My thing has always been all those people in jail. I mean, we probably have a million people in jail on marijuana in this country. All those people are suffering. All those people have had their lives destroyed, you know, and none of them, you know, are violent. You're talking about a non-violent thing, and our jails are full of these people, and every day, just in New York City alone, every day, 140 people are arrested for marijuana. It's got to stop. The laws themselves cause so much pain and suffering. Government's not supposed to make the people suffer.
I agree, absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. And that video, like I said, with this person that supposedly wrote up the laws, he mentions that. He talks about how many people are in jail and what kind of lengthy sentences they're in. he said I talked to. He said I was in contact with a lady who was arrested on marijuana charge. She had no money. She had her car repossessed. Obviously, she wasn't selling marijuana because people with money don't have their stuff taken away for repossession. Turns out she had a boyfriend who was living there selling marijuana. She wasn't doing any of it. But they arrested both of them and put them in jail. She had a young child who had to watch the police basically come in and take the mother away for years. Child doesn't know anything. Child doesn't understand why mom's being arrested, doesn't understand why anybody would be arrested over a plant, especially when they weren't even aware that it was in the house, but even a plant. I don't know. It's one of those things that boggles your mind so much that, sometimes you just gotta sit back and...
Christian, can I correct one thing?
Yeah.
Bert Aldrich, the man in the wheelchair, has a violation against him for selling to a minor, a 17-year-old. And everybody demonizes selling this. When he got arrested, or when he first had his problems, they took away his assistance. He's in a wheelchair, and he knows a lot about cannabis. So he's a natural dealer. He told me, and I'm going to do a show with him so he can document this, the average dealer makes less than minimum wage. When you take into account the kind of parasitic aspects around this, the lawyers, and you've got to pay the lawyers, and you lose all your money when they constantly come in and raid. Even the perception that the dealers have money, I don't think is a correct perception.
I can vouch for that because for many, many, many years I was dealing, and never did I ever have any money in the bank or any money saved. They demonize dealers so much, and if the local farmer can sell his corn and make a profit, and the local the guy growing tobacco can sell his tobacco and make a profit, why do they say anyone selling marijuana is such a demon, is so demonized, or they're such an evil person because they're trying to make a living?
That's what I mean about the constitutional right to right livelihood. If something is, in let's take New York in 1977, when they decriminalized, they said, scientific evidence clearly shows little harm or no harm at all from marijuana use. If that's the case, why can't you sell it? Why can't you deal it?
They don't even say little harm. They say no significant harm.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm here. I just hung the other phone up, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If New York says there's no significant harm from marijuana use or no harm at all, I've been asking this question, Abigail's been asking this question, how can you have criminal penalties for something that does no harm at all?
Joe, you should know about this. How do you strike a law down that doesn't belong? How do you go about that in the U.S.? Here we have something called Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and what the people do is the Canadian Charter of Rights challenge, and they'll go in and they'll challenge the law as it is. And I don't hear of them being struck down very often, but if it was found to be unconstitutional or against people's rights, the law is supposed to overturn that law. The justice system is supposed to overturn that law and make it, change it. I wonder how do you advocate for your own liberty there and get rid of some of this ridiculous...
It's the same thing here. You challenge it as unconstitutional. But all the judges are politically appointed, and the higher-ups tell them, don't you dare do that. Just like when Nixon, back in the days when Nixon did the Schaefer Commission. The Schaefer Commission was supposed to study marijuana. They studied it, and they did an in-depth study. And then they came back and said to Nixon, it was alienating a generation from society. It was harming people by them going to jail, and it it should be decriminal. They wanted to say legalize, but Nixon told them, don't dare use the word legalize. And they said that they thought it should be decriminalized. And then Nixon came out on television and said, I've considered what the Schaefer Commission said, and I think the American people don't want their children taking drugs. Therefore, I'm not going to legalize it. Even when he had the facts that it did no harm, he still chose to say, I don't think the American people want their children doing drugs, so I'm not going to legalize it.
But you don't want legalization. Explain that.
Right. And I'm against legalization because legalization still means that they control it. If they say, okay, we're going to legalize it for medical, then anybody who don't have medical still risks going to jail. The law itself was unconstitutional. It was based on lies every step of the way. False information was given to make the law in the first place. Now what we want is repeal of the bad law. Take the bad law away and leave the people alone to do whatever they want. For farmers who want to grow it, for the seed, for food, for farmers who want to grow it to make clothing, for farmers who want to grow it to make alcohol, which they could run. We could get off the gasoline standard. The original Henry Ford cars, when they were originally making cars, Henry Ford had fields and fields of marijuana that they were making alcohol from that the original cars ran on. If right now they legalized marijuana in the middle of this country, they could be growing huge fields and making alcohol and switch the cars over to run off alcohol, and we'd be off the gas and oil standard, and we wouldn't be sending all this money to the Arab countries. But yet the chemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies, and the petrochemical companies are the ones that are putting up the money and buying the politicians so that they keep it illegal. When they know the real facts, they know the facts more than we do.
So what you want to do is repeal the prohibition.
Are you still there?
Oh, I'm here, yes.
I know, it's stunning, isn't it?
I think it's definitely a good idea to repeal this, but what's the first step? What do you do first? You can't get a judge who's appointed to make a decent, honest decision because he's being, led by a leash by somebody else who you can't see. Who do you go to? I mean, who's above the judge that you can stand in front of and say, hey?
In this country, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights says, our Constitution, when it was set up, is we the people are the sovereigns of this country. All the government, the president is an employee of we the people. Congress are employees of we the people. The judges are employees of we the people. If we the people don't stand up in mass and demand change, it's never going to happen.
And you do it a bit at a time, Christian. When you use that example to Michelle, how would you feel if you went into a bakery and they took you to the back and they strip searched you and made you spread your cheeks, and even if, you're on your period and you're bleeding, so what? You'd be horrified. And yet, under color of law, that's exactly what's going on. So Michelle, you can see the light starting to go on. She's researching it, and now she has a really good lawsuit. She has a really good lawsuit. So if people go along and start suing and start using the court system, not being afraid of it, but just boldly going in there, but to be bold, you need knowledge. So that's what our business is. I think the most powerful thing is knowledge. I think it's even more powerful than any of the substances that we would espouse using.
And the most important thing we can do is educate the masses. That's what we've been trying to do, and we're getting there. And now what we need to do is start telling the masses, now it's time to speak up and come out. I want to try to organize a big march on Albany here. If we could get 10,000, 20,000 people to march on Albany and demand that all the marijuana prisoners be released. Once they release them and stop putting more people in, that's the only answer that we have. Release the people that are in jail and don't put any more in. That's the only way we the people are going to be safe.
I agree.
And get a forum, you know, if Normal doesn't like it, if LEAP doesn't like it, if MMP doesn't like it, ask them to debate it. Get some debates going. Put it on the internet, or, you know, have some great rock bands, and in between the bands, you know, get some of this information out. Have real freedom of speech. You know, I was up in Boston, and they wouldn't even let me talk. And here I am dedicating my public access daily show that comes on the Community Affairs channel at 12 noon. They knew who I was, but you had all these guys in black shirts. How many around the stage?
Around the stage. When Normal does a stage, they have so much security around their stage, only Normal can speak on their stage. And Normal is not looking out for the people. Normal has got its own agenda, and they want to keep it going. If marijuana got legalized, Normal would stop getting the huge donations that they're getting.
The repeal.
I agree. They're the same as the cancer societies. They're running a business for themselves.
Right.
That's the same as anybody that you're trying to tell to cure for cancer or anything else too. They just turn their heads. It's like saying, hey, you know, you don't have to sell that salt anymore because it's free in the ocean. And they're like, just shut up about that.
And just have the confidence that there will be a non-labor theory value of, you know, of the human being. You don't have to be valued according to the job you have. A lot of the policemen maybe feel, this is my job, there's no other job around. And so just for the sake of a job, people are doing things that they find repugnant in their heart. But again, if you do it legally, one wonders, as Michelle progresses through her lawsuit, how many people will be sued? Who will be sued? And how responsible are the officers if they know that what they're doing is not legal? Then I think you have to have personal responsibility and accountability. That's one.
Yeah, if you let the police go out and do whatever they want to, that's exactly what they're going to do. And I think that the evidence is showing that is what they're doing.
Yeah.
The things that happened to Joe and Michelle and Jay are happening to other people. They just don't have the means or the bravery to stand up and say, hey, this happened to us and we're damn sick of it.
I think you need to get a movement also of appreciating the Constitution and the courts. If you use the courts correctly, that you go in there truly expecting justice and being persistent until you get it, each person that stands up for their rights stands up for everybody's rights. And so if it takes litigation and lawsuits, then that's what you should do, and I'm sure that will help. I do think that there's a way out, but it needs persistence.
I partially agree with what she's saying. Unfortunately, our courts are so corrupt that they, like when I put in my paperwork, I would put in legitimate arguments with using Supreme Court rulings that were valid, and the prosecutor would ignore my arguments, and the judge would ignore my arguments, and they would rule how they want. Even when you hit them with real law, they just do what they want. They rule like tyrants. No longer do we have a government that's ruled by law. We have a government that's ruled by tyrants.
Yeah, exactly. We lose more rights every day than we ever gain. It's just something else being taken away every day.
Yeah, but Christian, I honestly feel that you enlightened Michelle. I saw her becoming more robust about her rights and feeling empowered that way.
Well, I'm glad I was able to do that.
Yeah, you did good with Michelle.
It was interesting to speak with her and to hear her perspective on it, because on the one hand, she was definitely, concerned that all this had happened, embarrassed too. But I guess in my mind, where in the seat that I'm sitting in, I wanted to motivate her to feel a little more angry about it. Like, think about what happened to you. It wasn't okay. And I mean, if it's okay for them to do it, who isn't it okay to do it to you?
Right.
I mean, you can't pick and choose who can just come and tell you to take your clothes off at random over nothing.
I think it's a slow wake up process, and Michelle is very bright, so she's waking up quickly. You notice how she takes notes and she follows up. The feeling I got is that she didn't really trust that what Joe and Jay was saying was correct, She felt, and understandably so, that these people, because they were growing marijuana in their home, this little tiny closet, it's just unbelievable. I should do some footage on that, just to get by. You know, when that's your medicine, it's your religion, you've got some people coming to you in desperate need, you do what you can. But she checked it out, and she found out that they were right, and it's about much more than marijuana.
No, it's about freedom. It's about choice, and it's about having all of that stuff taken away, and people just letting it happen. Now, the 140 people that got arrested today, how many of them are going to stand up and shout?
Right.
I know you will, and I will, and Joe will, and maybe now Michelle's going to. And is that enough? I don't think so. I think that the 140 people need to stand up, and everybody who is getting out of, you know, a police precinct in the morning and going home, and maybe they'll turn on public access, and maybe they'll see YouTube, and maybe they'll find, you know, us talking, and they're going to maybe be motivated to leave a comment or to make a phone call into your show, do something more than just sit there with their, you know, with their fist clenched, saying, I'm tired of this happening to me, and stand up and say, you know what, maybe if we all speak as a unified voice, eventually it's going to get heard. You know, I think that we have to really separate, you know, some of this this negativity with the, you know, people are being arrested every day for just smoking the thing. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with smoking it. I think that's fine if that's what you want to do. Likewise, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking it medicinally. I think it's absolutely amazing because I've done it myself. But there is definitely a separation between the people who use it medicinally and people who use it recreationally. And with that line drawn in the sand, you've got some people here saying, well, I've cured my Crohn's, I cured my cancer, and now I need it. I need it to help somebody else. And then on the other hand, there's the group of people which I tend to think of as the normal crowd, the organization, I mean, who are seen mostly for recreational use, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
They just want to be able to just have it whenever you want it for no particular reason. Just legalize it. I met with the normal organization in Halifax, Nova Scotia during a meeting. It was what was his name? Boris St. Maurice, I believe. He was from Montreal. Started the normal organization in Montreal. I believe they had a dispensary or possibly a compassion club there that got busted. But I mentioned to him, I was there with Rick. We said the thing cures cancer. He said, well, I don't believe it cures cancer, but even if it did, we would rather have this legalized for smoking. And I thought to myself, well, that's an interesting take on, you know, trying to get it legalized. If you really were serious about it, you might want to look into what, you know, is blowing up right in front of your face with cure for disease, because if anything's going to get it legalized, excuse me, it's not going to be somebody sitting in the corner laughing with a joint in their hand.
Christian, let me interrupt you. Please, we all got to stop using that word legalized. What we want is repeal of the bad law. We want the bad law taken away. Legalized still means they're going to make rules, and the rules they make are still going to be putting people in jail. Legalized is not the word.
I totally agree. I don't think they should be making laws against us in any way, shape, or form. So you can't make something illegal and not make it legal again. You need to just say, okay, we were wrong.
If they say the law was wrong and they repeal it, then we go back to how it was before they made the law.
Oh, exactly.
It's got to be repealed.
That's exactly why I say no to those California propositions. Because
us too.
Those people are trying to get, you know, they're willing to take that little bit, but they sacrifice so much for taking so little.
Right.
I agree with what you're saying, and maybe I'm using the word improperly, but when I say
we do it too.
Legalization, I'm basically saying the law can just F off somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, but that's why we all got to start using the word repeal the unjust law. and just take it away. We don't need to be regulated. We don't need to be licensed.
We don't need to be taxed.
We don't need to be taxed. Everyone should be allowed to grow their own, do what they want, for whatever purposes they want. And by the way, I want to send you, I made DVDs, I'm writing a book. I want to send you copies of my book, and I'd like to send you a copy. Would you send to Rick?
Yeah, well, actually, sending something to Rick right now might be a bit of a difficulty because he's being bounced around in Europe.
Well, you can hold it until it's the right time to send it to him, but I'll send you a set for you and a set for him.
Okay, I actually asked him if I could send him something recently, and he said things don't catch up to him very well because of the bouncing around. I sent him something already as a gift, and he hasn't seen it yet because it's somewhere other than where he is, and it's not reachable. So it's one of those things. But if you had, I could send him the book for sure. But if you have it in,
it's in DVD form.
Oh, it's on a DVD.
Yeah, it's me telling stories about my adventures from 1969 on.
I'm sure he'd be interested.
They're great stories. And incidentally, that helps us segue into the next chapter here. I want to talk about Shauna Banda, and I want to hear you explain what she did, because I know she prepared her cure differently than what you depict on Run from the Cure. Do you want to explain Shauna Banda?
Yeah, I can explain Shauna Banda. Well, I'm holding her book right now. It's called Live Free or Die. It's subtitled Reclaim Your Life, Reclaim Your Country. And Shauna had terminal Crohn's. It was diagnosed about 9 years ago or so. And she's had about 15 surgeries. And she actually said she's had about every organ that you can take out of your body taken out. And, everyone that you can have taken out and still live. And so she struggled through the medical system, struggled with their medications and their surgeries and their nonsense and their just absolute resolve to keep making money on her. They did it for 9 years. And she said she would go, I read the first chapter of her book here this morning. I should have been studying for my exam, but she said that she used to go out to the garage to hide the pain from her children. She didn't want them to see her in agony. She said she would try to eat, and her body would not accept any nutrition. It would just pass it all through. She was just sick beyond belief on the couch, raising her children from the couch, in pain all the time. And she told me she had found Run from the Cure on a website and watched it. And she said she cried because she saw Rick explaining how you make the oil, and you need a pound, and in a non-medical marijuana state, it's very difficult to get a pound, especially if you don't have enough money. Just through talking with you guys, I realized that $2,400, which is about what a pound goes for around here, is change compared to what you would pay for good quality marijuana, even in New York.
In New York, it's about, on average, $4,000 for a good pound.
And you know something else? The markup on marijuana is less than products from China that are being sold in retail stores in New York City. So even at that price of, what did you say it was?
$4,000 a pound.
Yeah, even at that price, the markup is less, even if you get it straight from the farmer, than products from China. Think about that. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what Shauna did is she knew pretty much she couldn't do the process that we showed on Run from the Cure with the extraction and the solvent because of the amount that she would need. Now, it's my understanding that she was using marijuana as a medicine at the time, but using it through smoking. And she mentioned that she had been to the doctor and her lungs had been, I think she had tried to smoke it so much of it that she had actually damaged her lungs just by, just inhaling it too much too often. she uses the expression "blown my lungs," but I believe what she means is you just smoke so much you can't take another breath. It's just too much. And it is a very minimal way to get medicine. I mean, for the amount that you'd have to smoke.
So how did she make it?
To get the same amount to smoke that you would take it in oil, you would be smoking all day, and you would never get the same effect, and you'd feel like crap. So what she did was she asked her. She thought it'd be a good idea to get a vaporizer. So I guess her husband went out and bought her a really cheap dome glass vaporizer from the 70s, which she said was really garbagey. And I've got one around here somewhere, and it's no good. It doesn't work. And she said the same thing. It's just a piece of junk. It doesn't have any bells or whistles on it. It's just a dome. It's like a snow globe with a heater in it and a tube coming out of it. And so she was sitting there reading or whatever, watching TV. She had her thumb over the tube while the marijuana was vaporizing. And she said, I was mad about the vaporizer being a piece of crap, and I basically just put my thumb over the tube, and she said her husband came in, and she had forgotten that she was holding the tube because she was just sick and just sitting there. And he said, that dome is full of, vapor. And he said, as a matter of fact, what's that stuff on it? It was kind of like a red film or something, or a dark film. And he said, could that be the same stuff, like that was in the movie? And she didn't make contact with any of us at the time, so I saw the video on YouTube all of a sudden, and I noticed that she said she took a $5 spatula, and what she did was, after the marijuana was completely vaporized, she would scrape the inside of that dome. Apparently you can take the dome right off, scrape the inside of the dome out like you're scraping, the bottom of a cake batter bowl, I guess. And she said, you only get a little bit, but you take that amount that's on the spatula, you put it in those gelatin capsules. And she says, I take one of those filled before meals, and from what I understand, I don't know exactly what time frame we're looking at here, but she's cured that terminal Crohn's, at least since the time we put Run from the Cure out, because she said that she did it back in 2008, I believe, which was the year the movie did get released. So, and even just watching that, I realized that, without the solvent, the method is still the same. The cannabinoids are coming off of the plant. They're not being stripped off with solvent, but at the same time they're being heated and decarboxylated, which is what makes the medicine potent. People can make, hemp oil any way they want, but if they don't heat it, it's never going to be effective. It's not going to work. It's not going to cure the things that it should, because it's not decarboxylated. Even people who are scientists have tried that. And you can't make it with cold water. And, people try to make cold water hash and then try to make an oil out of it. Unless you add the heat, it doesn't work, because the science of it is it has to be decarboxylated in order to be that kind of medicinally potent. So with the heat in the vaporizer and the scraping and what she was doing, she found a very much more crude way of doing it than what we would do, but it's a safe way. And I would say that it probably would work for anybody who wanted to try it, who doesn't have the money or the facility to go out and try to procure a pound and make, a lot of medicine at once. I wouldn't gamble with my own life. I'd borrow the money if I had to, if I was terminal, and I would do it Rick's way, because I know that way works. But it's so inspiring to see somebody who is so desperate take basically another accidental discovery and make something awesome out of it. Like I said, I'm holding her book right here, Live Free or Die, and it's basically a journal. It reads like a journal, and I believe she was writing it while she was sick and getting better, and realized when she did get better that this isn't something that you can just stick under your hat. People need to know. Definitely, I'd like to see people get a copy of this book. I'm going to read it today and tomorrow. I'm planning on finishing it, but over the weekend, and I'd love to talk to you about what I read in it. But it's just that kind of thing. I believe another person who had cured their cancer on their face had a friend drop by and give them some hash oil to smoke. It just so happened to be that it was made in the oven, like some people do. I'm not suggesting people do that. I don't like fumes and open flames or even sparks of any kind, but because there's always a potential for a fume explosion. But some people just do whatever they want anyway, and I can't babysit everybody. And I'm under the impression that this person had made hash oil at home for the purposes of smoking, but they did it in such a way that it actually cured somebody of cancer. So there's a whole bunch of different things happening with this where, people might not be able to make it the way Rick does, or they find their own way through experimenting or through just a lack of options. Like Shauna Banda had nothing. She didn't have money to do it, and she wouldn't have had the energy, I don't think, to get up and actually physically, make the product. But to find out that you can do something like she says, you can buy a $20 vaporizer and a $5 spatula, or a $50 vaporizer, even that, and put a little piece of marijuana in it. And she said she has since removed the hose from the vaporizer, and she just has it duct taped shut. So every day before a meal, she just puts a piece in and waits an hour, scrapes it out, and takes her medicine.
Can you spell her name and also the book so people can find it on Amazon?
Absolutely. It's actually on a site called Author House, and you can buy it there. Her name is Shauna, S-H-O-N-A. The last name is Banda, B-A-N-D-A. The book is called Live Free or Die, Reclaim Your Life, Reclaim Your Country. Actually, the ISBN number is an easy way to find it. It's 978-1449045555.
Can you
like
repeat,
I said,
Christian?
Author House sells this book. I believe she has done it through that company, and very few people have it at the moment. It's kind of new, so I want people to have the opportunity to get that because it ties directly in with Run from the Cure. In fact, Rick and the movie are both mentioned in the book as credit for saving her life.
Christian, can you repeat the ISBN number?
Absolutely. It's 978-1-4490-4555-5.
Thank you.
And I haven't read very much of it all, but I'm already hooked on it. I got to page 4 last night, and I started to weep. And I'm actually holding it in my hand right now. And if I could just read you a little piece of it, this is what got to me. It's let me just pick up on a spot here. Pride has always come to the table whenever I had described any part of my sickness to anyone other than my husband, even from my children. When Mommy was not feeling well, she was in the garage. I kept myself away from them because I never wanted them to see me grimace in pain or cry out, so I kept a bit of distance. In some ways, I regret the time away from them, and in some ways, I don't. No child should ever have to watch their mother in pain like that. I now have that miraculous second chance at life. I am going to take full advantage. My children will know who I am before I'm gone, which has been a major issue with me. I had come to the conclusion that I would pass at a very young age and that my children would only remember their sick and lifeless mom. Very depressing. For the first time, I am able to envision a great future and living a long and healthy life. I may even get to meet my grandchildren someday, whereas before I was not even able to imagine or picture staying on this earth long enough. I mean, the power in that's only one paragraph out of this whole book.
Wow.
And it just blows me away that something that I was involved in, had this kind of impact on somebody. It actually just moves me to, and it's just the one person out of so many. I mean, this thing that Rick has come up with has changed so many lives, and we hear about it from so few people, but it's happening to so many people right now who are afraid to talk, who are afraid to come out and say, yes, it worked, or yes, I'm going to try it. I usually advocate to people, do what you feel is right for you, and if you're sick, do what you have to do to get better, and to hell with what the law thinks of it. But you got to be smart about it too. Where I said before, like Rick Simpson was trying to get the message out, and had he not tried to do that, I would never have found out, and I would never have been able to make a movie. But had he never said anything, he probably never would have been arrested either. And he could have kept doing it, but he would have only reached minimal people. It would be like watering the desert with a garden hose. It just doesn't work that way.
If you hadn't done that, Christian, I wouldn't have found out about it, and I would never have met Joe.
Well, I guess things all happen for a reason, and I think this all happened for a darn good one. I said to Shauna on the internet last night, I was speaking with her through a chat program, I said, I'm reading your book, Shauna, and I said, I want you to know that when I made this movie, I said to Rick Simpson, if there's one person that I can help with this movie the same way that you helped me with my back, then every bit of time I'm putting into this, every headache, every frustrated minute that I put into editing that thing on a personal computer, it was worth every second. And I said to her, you're that one person that I was talking about. Like, she's not the only one person, but she is that person that I was, trying to help. And the fact that she's got 2 young boys at home that don't have to watch their mom die. I mean, the fact I didn't get paid for this movie, what better payment is there than hearing that kind of thing? For me, that's everything. There's no amount of money in the world that can replace the feeling I get from reading this book.
Yeah, there's no greater thing we could be doing with our lives than healing people.
Absolutely. And it's so awesome. And if we could all get into the motivation and the spirit of doing this for somebody else and feeling that good feeling, it feels a lot better than a paycheck, let me tell you.
You said it.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm grinning ear to ear right now because I know this girl sitting down. I don't know where exactly she's living right now, but I know that she had her 16-year anniversary with her husband yesterday, and it's because she's not terminal on the couch anymore.
Wow. I know you've been through a lot of heartbreak, too, over this whole thing, and then juggling going to school and not making any money on the film because it's all being given away, but if it wasn't being given away, people wouldn't know about it. But I think it's this spirit of actually sharing that's the most central to the healing. And I think a lot of people who do have money and they do have access to good oil and who still are not healing, I think it's because they haven't embraced this notion of charity and helping, because it also is our participation in this human life. I mean, why are we here except to help each other?
I agree.
Or to help each other be included, that it takes more. We can't be isolated. We need each other. We help each other for our own sakes. The more that are included, the richer our life is. And we need to include the marijuana prisoners, the poor. I mean, I don't know, did you pick up in Michelle's story that she went to some neighbors who were using the last minutes on their phone card? I remember in the old days of landlines, a telephone was a pretty cheap thing. I think it was considered that, everybody, it was the bare minimum that you'd have a telephone line. In New York City, to have a landline, the price just skyrocketed, pushed everybody to these cell phones. And now when the cell phone goes out, you go into a home and your minutes, these were not wealthy people that stretched out a hand to help each other. I found that very touching.
I find that this movement that Rick has created, it was going on for long before I showed up. It just wasn't getting the attention that it deserved, and it wasn't getting the publicity that it needed. And I'm still dumbfounded that me, out of all people, would have been the one to go and say, hey, I know how to make videos. I've done it, for work before, so how would you like me to make a documentary about this? Because for one thing, it's an interesting topic. Then he gave me that oil, and I realized that, the documentary I was considering making, I mean, there was no way around it. It had to be done, even if it just cured pain. I mean, he was saying it cured cancer, and that's the day you hear it. I mean, I needed to go look, and at the time there wasn't a whole lot of information on the internet.
Do you remember what you were talking about? Otherwise, in our last 10 minutes, can you talk about Run from the Cure 2, the vision that you're having?
No. I don't want to reveal anything.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No. Well, I mean, there's so many angles to this that have to be covered. Definitely there's going to be some things that are going to be in it that weren't in the last one. Like I was saying that when I first made Run from the Cure, and I came home from Rick's house initially, I couldn't find proof of what he was saying anywhere. It was almost like it didn't exist. There was, a couple of reports here and there that said maybe marijuana will help with this or help with that, and I knew it would help with cancer pain when people smoked it. I knew people were smoking it for, when they were on dialysis machines and stuff like that to get over the agony of the pain they were in. So, I mean, I didn't dispute that much of it, but I came home looking for information that I couldn't find. It was only the fact that the hemp oil took my pain that was in my back that was stopping me from moving properly. And when when somebody basically gives you something and you snap your fingers and the pain's gone, it's something more happening than just some, random coincidence. I was trying to make myself believe that maybe, I ended up pushing a pressure point on my body, and the pain went away, and it was just a miraculous coincidence. And I was asking people as I was interviewing them for Run from the Cure, is there any way that you were cured just by some spontaneous remission? And I mean, everybody's just looking at me like, if it was spontaneous remission, why did it happen when Rick showed up with hemp oil? And nobody could do anything for me before that. The most amazing part of the story that people were telling was, I've been to the doctors, I've been to the medical system, they can't do anything for me. And then Rick can cure me in, a matter of weeks or months, depending on what it was. For me, it was, hours. So what I want to get through to people is a little more of the science. I've never been in this to prove this to anybody. I don't feel like I have to prove it. One thing that Rick says, I think that speaks louder than anything, is if you don't believe that cannabis cures cancer, make some of it and rub it on a skin cancer and watch what happens. And you're not going to be waiting for too long either. I mean, it's something anybody can prove to themselves. If you've got a friend with cancer, if you've got a mole that's growing out, all out of shape and out of sorts and getting all these weird colors in it, oil has the potential to loosen those things right off you because they're not supposed to be there. So the science is something I want to teach people. I want to teach people how to make a smaller amount. You don't necessarily need a pound. You won't yield as much, obviously, but you'll get some to take for now, and then when you get another paycheck, maybe you can make some more. And that maybe take some of the burden off of people who think, oh no, a pound.
That's kind of what happened to Shauna Banda, right? Just a little amount was enough to help her kind of pull herself up by her own bootstraps with that lousy vaporizer. She said she was even mad at her husband for having wasted the money to get it.
Well, yeah, and the fact that she sent him out to get something good and he came back with something terrible. But turns out it was probably the best thing that she could have gotten, because if she had gotten a vaporizer that did not stick to the side, where the cannabinoids didn't vaporize and stick to the side of the glass to be able to be scraped out, because, a vaporizer, as Joe would probably know, or anybody that ever used one, the idea is not to collect the vapor and keep it in there, it's to get it into you.
Right.
So what she's doing is putting it all in I guess similar to, putting steam in a bowl. The steam collects on the edge of the bowl. Of course, with cannabis, it's very sticky. But if you put steam in a bowl, you can scrape that steam out and eat it, because it turns into water on the edge. And I guess that water vapor, if you want to use that for the example, water vapor going through the air can stick to the walls. It can stick to the mirror in your bathroom when you're having a shower. And if you shrink that idea down to a bowl in a vaporizer, I call it a bowl, but it's more like a dome on top of a vaporizer. Looks like a candy vending machine, actually. The cannabinoids just basically they vaporize. They turn into steam, for lack of a better word, and then the steam will collect on the sides, the walls of that dome. All she did was scrape it off and eat it. Which, I mean, I would never have thought to do that, even though I think Rick's process, because I know it works, I think it's absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't want to use anything different than that because I have the ability to do that. But for somebody who needs it right now, like somebody watching this right now, needs that kind of method, go watch Shauna Banda's video because she's got some ideas that you might be looking into real soon.
Again, her name is Shona, and then the last name Banda, Banda. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, she's
so. It's said very plainly. Some people try to put a funny accent on it, but it's Shauna Banda.
Shauna Banda.
Yeah.
Now she's from Colorado, isn't she?
Well, she was in Kentucky when this was happening, so I'm not really certain where she's from.
I see.
I know that her video that she released originally said a young woman who lived in Kentucky, or no, Kansas. It was Kansas she was from. That's what a lady living in Kansas had terminal Crohn's. That's where she was from.
I see.
Or at least that's what I believe. That's where I believe she was living when she saw the movie on the internet.
Has she hooked up with the Captain Cannabis, the Denver crowd that's had that wonderful result?
I haven't really talked to her on the phone. I do plan to interview her, and I'm trying to keep our contact limited until I'm able to do that because I want the story fresh from her mouth.
I think you're so correct on that. And again, I want to thank you for doing that interview with Michelle because you did just that. While it was fresh in her awareness, she was able to give a very detailed account, and she has a very logical mind and very good memory.
Well, I enjoyed speaking with her. Everything she said was in steps. And even when I said something that may have confused somebody else, she was able to pick right back up where she was and realize, no, I already said that part. I'm
right.
here. Like she knew what she was talking about.
Right.
I mean, when that kind of thing happens to you, I mean, I think that she had enough. Definitely Michelle is a very strong person because I said to her, like some people lose, something that happens to them when it's traumatizing. They'll forget details.
Right.
She didn't seem to forget a whole lot of anything. Like she was right on the ball, and
no,
I really enjoyed speaking with her, and I'd like you to tell her that for me because I know it was a very personal thing that she shared, but where it's going to help so many people to understand what their rights are in an age where there aren't a whole lot of people giving us that information. I mean, schools aren't offering it. There should be a class in high school how to defend yourself and how to be free.
No, you're so right. In the interview that you did with her, I could just practically see light bulbs going on in her head because she's intelligent. So when you gave her the right information, she immediately connected the dots. And that's why I'm saying when you become discouraged, or we all become discouraged, people like Michelle or Shauna Banda, you go, wow, it's really worth it. People are really doing something, and knowledge is really powerful, and it can grow and multiply, again, through the sharing. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this work with you guys. I know we're separated now. There's going to be a time when I'm not in school, and I would love to come to New York and collaborate and do something with you.
Oh, wow, that would be great, Christian.
We would love that.
There's something stopping me right now that's specific that I can't go anywhere, but that's going to change, and New York is not that far from here. So let's make this happen. I mean, I'd rather come there. You don't want to come here. There's nothing to look at here except some trees. But I'll come to New York.
We would love it.
I'll bring my camera equipment. We'll have a great time. We can make a lot of good shows as well. I'd love to do some in-studio work with you, Paula, and with Joe and Abigail and whoever else. I mean, when we can get together like that and bridge the gap in distance between us, then we can really come together and make something happen, I think. And people to see us on screen together would be really positive too.
Wow. And Joe has this idea of Freedom First Party concerts, or
I used to put on the Woodstock Free Festivals up in Bethel, New York, where the original Woodstock Festival was.
What's the name of the town?
Bethel, New York, where the original Woodstock Festival happened.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay, I used to put on a free festival up there. We called it the Woodstock Free Festival. But now what I want to do, I want to put on a festival where we put bands on with speakers in between each band on different subjects, that like what we're talking about. But I want to call it the Free People's Convention. Like the Republicans have a convention, the Democrats have a convention. Why shouldn't we have a convention? And we'll discuss the issues that are important to us.
And that's why he's so concerned with free speech, the big normal event. I remember Joe was saying when they restrict the free speech, they don't let everybody come up to the mic, the crowd wasn't buying it, the message. They weren't buying it.
Well, no, because it almost looks like it's being forced on them at that point, I would think.
Yeah.
And they had so many security. When Normal did this show up there, they had security standing arm to arm all the way around the stage to make sure that only the message that they were putting out was going to be said from that stage. Anybody who wanted to speak who wasn't putting out the normal propaganda couldn't get close to the stage. I want to have a stage that's dedicated to free speech, that's open to anybody who's really got something to say. If they're trying to save the rainforest or save the earth or save something, I want to put them on stage. If they want to spew hate, we don't have room for them. But if they've got something to say, positive, then I want to make a platform for them to say it.
Yay!
And then you can make a show out of that, too.
Oh, of course.
That's a good show. That'd be a good... And that's in a field, is it?
Well, we did it at the original site of the Woodstock Festival. But I started the Freedom First Party as a political party just to do this. But I have run up against big obstacles, including when we raised $28,000 that I was going to use to put on the Free People's Convention. But when the police kicked in my door, they took that money, which kept me from being able to do it. But after this court case or whatever, I'm going right back to it. I will do the Free People's Convention at some point in time.
Right.
I like it.
So your idea, Christian, is right on, that we need to get together physically. You and Rick and me and... it's amazing that we haven't met you guys physically yet, but we need to do that. We need to bring Rick back. He's a fugitive. We need to change that. People don't really understand the pain of being a fugitive. I'm just recently understanding it because, some people, it's unacceptable to be in a cage, and when they see they're playing a chess game where they don't have a chance to win, they just run away, and they have to change their name, and they live as, as a fugitive. Now, I know that Rick, I know Sophia, I know Bulgaria, he's seeing the world, but it's really sad when you're away from your home and your family. That's tough.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, Rick, I've spoken with Rick on this issue before, and yes, he misses his family, and but he said, this is not exactly what he had signed up for, but it's getting the message out there, and he said he wouldn't have it any other way. He absolutely wouldn't have it any other way. So if it eases your mind any, Rick was never doing this for himself. He's doing it for the rest of us. He's willing to do what he wants for himself, and if he was all in this for himself, he never would have mentioned it to anybody. He would have just kept doing it for himself. But that's what makes Rick so selfless. You can't corrupt the man. He's uncorruptible. He's the perfect spokesperson for hemp oil, because he's never going to take a penny to look the other way while somebody does something underhanded. He's going to expose them, and he's going to expose the truth until everybody knows what it is.
But I think if you're a good psychoanalyst too, Christian, he gets pretty angry, and I think at the basis of that anger is some grief that he's been so selfless. Like, consider in his court case, so many people that he gave hemp oil to absolutely free. When push came to shove, they didn't want to testify on his behalf because they were so terrified that this was illegal. As it turns out, the establishment was more afraid, and they didn't let the doctors and the patients who did step forward even speak. So it was a non-issue. But at one time, I can understand his disappointment.
Well, he called me one day while I was still making the movie. He said, I'm getting some subpoenas ready for court, and I wanted to know if you would be interested in testifying about your experience with the oil. And I said, I'd be honored to. And he said, you would? And I said, well, yeah, of course I would. What do you mean you would? He said, well, I've been calling people all day and all week, and he said, I've got like 4 people out of 1,000 who are willing to do anything. And he said, you said yes right away, and it was just like, I'm not used to hearing that right now. And I said, well, I wouldn't have it any other way, Rick. I mean, I can run down the road, and, you know, I can do cartwheel. If I knew how to do a cartwheel, I could do them all the way down the street. I've never done cartwheels in my life, but I mean, I can go out and try right now, and I won't get hurt. I mean, when somebody does something like that for you, I don't see what kind of pride or foolishness would stop you from wanting other people to know about it. I mean, the people around here are, I mean, I don't want to blanket everybody, but the ones that didn't speak up are obviously either completely selfish or brain dead. And I am saying that to every one of you that didn't do this for Rick. You know you got helped. Some of you got cured of terminal